25 plus year career in healthcare and decided to go into mental health counseling, I realized that there was an area that was really being missed, which is that intersection of career and mental health. I was thrilled when Heather and Chad reached out to me to ask me to come in and speak with you guys today, because I think it's a really important area that so oftentimes if you happen to be seeing a counselor, when I was seeing a counselor, there were things that were going on in my life that had a lot to do with my career. I started out at the very bottom rung when I was 19 years old with the company that I retired from before going into counseling. As I moved up, I ended up being the COO. So you guys know that oftentimes the higher you get up within the organization, there's lots of additional stresses that come on, right? And that's an area that a lot of times just doesn't get addressed. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is that intersection of career and mental health, and how you guys can take care of yourselves, how your leadership can take care of you, how you can take care of yourselves, which means that you can then take care of your team members that work for you, and then they can take care of your guests. So it's kind of a trickle-down effect, right? Taking care of ourselves, our leadership taking care of us, goes all the way down to the home. First thing I want to talk about is we are very holistic. All areas of our lives affect the other areas. So it'd be, in a perfect world, we'd be able to say, I go to work, when I finish work, I leave everything at work there. And then I just step into my kids' lives. And then I only focus on my kids for the evening. And then when they get to bed, then I only focus on myself or my spouse. But, I mean, is that the way you guys are able to function? Probably not, right? None of us are. So we're all all of the other areas of our lives, all of the other components of our lives end up affecting the other areas. So if we're highly stressed in one area, oftentimes it can negatively impact other areas of our lives. But another thing I want to talk about is from a holistic view, and I am a very, my thought processes are very holistic. So when we talk about mental health, oftentimes that kind of comes with a stigma, but the way I look at it is health is health, okay? Our physical health is tied to our mental health can be tied to our physical health. So when we're thinking of ourselves in this holistic manner, I'm going to use the word mental health today just simply because that's kind of what we're talking about, but I want you to think of it as just healthy. It's just another component to us being healthy, okay? So let's talk about some of these different areas that we kind of deal with in our lives, okay? So some of the components, and this is from a psychology standpoint, these are basically the areas, the components that kind of make up who we are. So we all have this emotional intelligence. How do we regulate our emotions? Can we regulate our emotions? When we get really stressed, how do we deal with that? When we really get upset, can we kind of bring ourselves back down, or do we just kind of continue to fly off the handle? How do we deal with our emotions? And then environmental. What's going on around us? And that can be what's going on around us in the world. Right now, we've got a lot of things that are kind of going on in the world, right? Between Ukraine and things going on with Russia, we've got an election coming up, but we can also talk about things that are kind of going on in our community. What's our community environment like? What's the economy like? So these are all environmental stresses that also play into kind of who we are. Intellectual, how do we use our brain? What is our aptitude? What is our intelligence level? Is our job, are we using our cognitive abilities in a way that are beneficial to us? Some people like to really use their brain. Some people really like to use their physical body to do things. So there's not a right way or a wrong way, but we all have some different level of intellect that we're using on a daily basis. Then we have the social component. What do our relationships look like? Do we have friends? Do we have time for friends with our careers, right? Do we make time for our families? What does our social environment look like? Then we have the physical piece. Are we taking care of ourselves physically? And again, when I'm talking about mental health, I'm also including that physical health in it. Because again, going back to the being holistic, where health is health, right? Then we have the spiritual. And no matter where you are on the spiritual realm, everybody has a spiritual component. It may be when we leave this earth, we don't go anywhere else. That's a spiritual piece. Are we agnostic? Are we atheists? Do we believe in God? Do we believe in a higher power? Is it something within the universe? But there's a spiritual component to all of us. Most therapists will work with the areas that we just talked about. Some not the spiritual, some with. But the majority of therapists do not work with the career piece. And we all know that you guys in your careers spend a ridiculous amount of hours working, right? You were just saying, what, 50, 60, 70, 75 hours a week. You guys are spending an awful lot of time with career. And so how is that affecting your mental health? And again, by mental health, I mean total health. And how is that career affecting your mental health, and how is your mental health affecting your career? Okay, so that's just kind of a little guide for all the different components that as a therapist we kind of look at. Many employees, and when I refer to employees today, I'm going to refer to your leadership, you guys as GMs, and your team, okay? So as I'm talking about employees, I want you guys to be thinking of this in terms of yourselves too, of yourselves as employees, not just saying, this is what I need to look for in my employees that work for me, okay? I want you guys to remember that you guys are employees too, and so I'm directly relating this to you, but the same things that we're talking about for you can also apply to how you work with your employees and help to make sure that they're the best people that they can be, so that your restaurants can be the best that they can be, and your guests can have the best experience they can have. Does that make sense? Okay. So, many employees, many of them, and we're going to look at some statistics today, many of them are facing mental challenges. And there is a myriad of reasons as to why that is, right? It may be stresses that come from the job. It may be something completely external to the job, but because it's affecting them, it's affecting their ability to do their jobs in the most productive way. So I want to talk a little bit about many of these employees, and you guys included, may not be stepping out and taking as good a care of yourselves as you could be and should be for a variety of different reasons. And one of them is societal stigma. So we know, and this is one of the reasons that when I talk about mental health, with my clients, I really just use the word health, because I'm trying to remove that stigma from the word mental health. Because a lot of times that has kind of a negative connotation, right? She's struggling with mental health. He's struggling with mental health, right? That sounds like there's something wrong with them. And I can tell you, we all need extra support sometimes. And when my clients come in and tell me, right, I feel broken, I'm reminding them, there's nothing wrong with you. You're struggling with something. It could be high blood pressure. It could be diabetes. In my case, it was cancer. It was something I struggled with. It didn't define me. It didn't dictate who I was. It was just something I struggled with. But if I came to my boss and said, I have cancer, he's going to say, my gosh, what can I do to help? What do we need to do to navigate through this, right, together? oftentimes when we talk about mental health, there's a stigma associated with it, right? Oh, there's something wrong with that person, okay? And there's not. So it's societal stigma, and it is getting better, right? We're talking about it a lot more. There's a lot more people that are getting a little bit more open about it, which is exactly what needs to happen in order for us to have this culture shift, that there's nothing wrong with needing some extra support sometimes, because we're human and we all do, okay? Fear of judgment. I think for the most part, we all fear being judged, right, about anything. But when you're looking at it from a work environment, and you're working with these people every single day, then sometimes we're afraid that if we bring something up, that we're going to be judged, and then people are going to look down on us. And then we may end up in a situation where people think, okay, there's something, wrong with this person. I might be thinking as an employee, if I say to my boss that I'm struggling, that they may think, okay, this is an issue that they're not going to be as productive. Maybe we just need to terminate it, right? And that happens all the time, unfortunately. So people may fear job loss. They may fear a reduced advancement opportunities. Someone's struggling with depression. Maybe they're not as feeling, they're just not as productive because the depression weighs on them so heavily. It truly feels, there's a physical feeling with a very deep-seated depression of just this weight that you're carrying around. And so maybe you're not as productive. And so then maybe our employer thinks, we'll just put them in a little job that's maybe not quite as high stress, which then, the employee may feel like, I may never get an opportunity for advancement like I would have in the future, like I would have before I said something about this. So people fear saying anything in a work environment for fear that they may reduce their opportunities to move up the ladder. Sometimes people don't get mental health help because they fear the cost. So when we go into human resources and we get hired, it's very common for HR to talk to us about our health insurance benefits, right? Here's your deductible, here's your copay, this is what your insurance is going to cover. Then they might talk to you about your dental. Get 2 cleanings a year, you get a maximum out of pocket, right? So we kind of all know that information. Vision, how many sets of contacts am I going to get, right? So HR is going to give us some good information, but it's not very often that they talk about what benefits employees will have for mental health. So a lot of times, and people oftentimes can be afraid to use their benefits, their mental health benefits, for fear that their company's going to find out that they're struggling with something. And so a lot of times they don't want to use their benefits, and if they can't afford to pay for it on their own, they just don't get help. Okay? So these are just a few of kind of the top reasons that people don't reach out and get help. But there again are just tons of other reasons. We are seeing a change to people talking about mental health. So how many of you guys are from Dallas? Okay, so there's a few. Okay, I'm a huge Cowboys fan, so we're just going to talk about Dak Prescott. Okay, any of you that know Dak Prescott as the quarterback for? Okay, there's a couple of people smiling. Are there some Dak Prescott haters here? And that's okay. That's okay. But one thing about Dak is he has a following. He has people that are listening to him. And as many of you probably know, he lost his mother when he was younger. He also lost his brother fairly recently to suicide, Jace, who was also relatively young when he passed. And Dak has had some troubles with depression, which of course you can see why with everything that he's been through. So he's got a good platform to talk about mental health, and there are a lot of high-profile people that are beginning to talk a lot more openly about it. I definitely think we need more of that, but I think it's also important that we as a team, and even though you guys I think all run, I'm not in the restaurant business, so I'm not sure exactly how this all works, but I think as general managers, you guys all have some different restaurants that you run, right? So you may have some of your own teams, and you may not see each other a lot, but you guys are all still colleagues that work together and probably get together from time to time and have communication with each other and things like that. So, to talk openly with each other, with your team members, with your leadership, about the things that you're struggling with is part of what's going to help remove that stigma and allow people to feel like they can go in and, seek medical help for high blood pressure or seek medical help for depression and not have it feel any different than any kind of medical situation, right? So it's really important that from your leadership standpoint, that your leadership helps you all feel safe to talk about what you guys are struggling with, okay? It's important that you all help your team members that work for you to feel safe to talk about these same things, right? It reduces the stigma, but it also allows people to begin the process of getting the help that they need, okay? And in many cases, they really want, just are afraid to do it. The more we talk about it, the more that stigma is reduced, okay? So, if you take anything from today's presentation with me, I'm hoping that you will begin to kind of lower those barriers a little bit of allowing both yourself and your teams, and leadership needs to do the exact same thing, right? They need to be taking care of themselves, and they need to be helping you all take care of yourselves. Employees are increasingly burning out, and as I was in here earlier, there was some discussion about, and I think you mentioned, you guys have already talked a little bit about just, the high levels, the high rates of burnout. You guys work so many hours. Burnout is going to be really easy for you all if you absolutely don't take care of yourself, okay? You guys are so much younger than I am, but when I first started my career, all we had was an answering machine at home. If your company wanted to get in touch with you, they called and they left a message, right? Maybe you called them back, maybe you didn't, right? We were able to leave our jobs at 5 o'clock and be done with it. Then we got pagers. All right, you paged me. Maybe I couldn't find a payphone. Okay, if any of you even know what a payphone is, right? Because they're just not around anymore. But you had to go buy I had to go find a payphone. I hope I had a quarter to put in it, right? To make that call. And if I didn't, I couldn't return the call. Okay? Now you guys are connected 24/7. 24/7, right? I see you nodding, right? It's probably not uncommon because your restaurants are open from what, like 7 to 9 and 9:30 even on weekends sometimes? Just 9, okay. I looked it up online last night. Okay. So, yeah, you guys, those are crazy hours, right? To be on call, it's for people to have access to you, okay? You guys don't get to leave at 5 o'clock and be done with it for the day, right? So because of that, there's a lot more burnout going on. How can you guys help yourselves? And I'm going to direct this to, because I know that there's some, I'm not sure exactly who, but I know that there's some people from leadership in here. So I'm going to direct this to you all as well, right? To help your general managers, and for your general managers to help their team members discuss this more openly. Be transparent, right? If someone comes to you and says, I'm struggling with something, and you kind of understand why, maybe it's something you've kind of been through, again, it's always your story to tell, okay? It's not for me to say, if you need, if someone comes to you and they say, I'm struggling with, I feel like I'm kind of in this depressive episode. And remember, every level of depression does not have to be diagnosed depression. Sometimes we all go through these depressive times that we're not clinically depressed. It's just something that we're struggling with on a temporary basis. Okay, so don't be afraid of the word depressed or depression, because it doesn't define you. It doesn't mean that it's a long-term type of thing. It's just something you're struggling with now. So, but it's your story to tell. If someone says something to you, I'm struggling and this is what's going on, and you can kind of connect with that, and you want to be transparent and say, yeah, I feel the same way sometimes. But if you don't want to share that, don't feel like you have to. Just be as transparent as you can where you guys are still comfortable. Okay? Avoid using negative language. So, it's not uncommon in years past if someone was struggling with maybe high levels of anxiety and they would get kind of worked up and then maybe have a panic attack. People would say, oh my gosh, they're crazy, right? They're not. They're struggling with something, okay? So the language we use and how we speak to other people and ourselves matters. It truly matters. So avoid using negative or stigmatizing language when discussing mental health and workplace stress, because we all feel it, okay? Stay positive, speak positively, listening without judgment. People talk in spaces that they feel safe. So when my clients come to me, we talk about this is a safe space. Say anything you want, no judgment, like this is a time for you to talk about what you need to talk about, okay? If you're working with a team member, leadership's working with their team members, the general managers, no judgment. There is no room for judgment because we all struggle. Be understanding. You may not completely understand what's going on in their lives, but try to be as understanding, validating as you can, okay? Offer assistance to supervisors. Some of your leadership may come to you sometimes because maybe they feel a connection or they see, something going on similar that they feel like you might understand. So we can work with people above us or below us when we're, not that anyone's below us, but from a organizational charge, right? Offer any assistance that you can. Model exemplary behavior. But also remember, don't pretend to be, like if you're struggling, you don't have to go in and just put this mask on every day and just pretend like, everything's rainbows and unicorns when it's not. Need to be able to be authentic. That's where we find our most happiness, is when we can be our authentic self in a safe environment with no judgment, able to talk to people in our social support group, whoever that is, okay? And then one of the stresses that I find a lot in my practice is people don't know the expectations. Oftentimes employees feel like they haven't gotten trained well, they don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, they don't know what the expectations are. Maybe, the boss says, this is what I want you to achieve, but you have no direction in how to get there, or what you need to achieve, the expectations are a little bit more vague. So when employees know, and that's general managers, team members, leadership, when people know what they're supposed to be doing and what the expectation is and how to get there, they feel a lot more comfortable within their job. That's a big stress that I see. We know that career is hard on people. And remember, career is how you spend your time. There are a lot of people whose careers are going to school, students, right? High school students, college students. My practice works from students 14 and up through the lifespan. So my students, that is their career, being a student. They don't get paid for it, but that is their career. That's what they're doing. College students, oftentimes the same way, right? But career can obviously also be paid. So how you're spending your time is going to affect your marriage, your relationships, what those look like, your families. Like if you're stressed out at home, if you're stressed out at work and you go home and yell at your spouse, that trickles down. Your spouse may be upset, with then yells at the kids, and then the kids become upset, and then they yell at the dog. right? And then the dog's like, hey, hey, right? Just laying here looking for a belly rub, and all of a sudden someone's yelling at me, right? And so we have to monitor how our job affects these other areas of our life, including our friendships and our colleagues, our relationships with our colleagues. The World Health Organization estimates that for every dollar U.S. employers spend treating common mental health issues, they receive a return of $4 in improved health and productivity. Okay, so in my business, for my employees, if I can spend $1 or 1 minute helping them, and I'm going to get $4 in return, or more productivity, or a happier employee, I'm going to do that all day long. Okay? I know you guys, and I mean, my practice is a business. Okay? You guys are in business to make money. Okay? You're not for profit, right? You guys are in the business to make money, and I get that. Okay? The happier your employees are, the more they feel valued. And again, I'm speaking to leadership for the general manager's sake. The more they feel valued, the more they feel empowered, the more they have guidelines of what's expected for them, the more productive, the happier they're going to be, therefore usually the more productive they're going to be, which then adds to the bottom line, right? So from a financial standpoint, it's good business to take care of our employees' mental health. Employment is, in a perfect world, which I know we don't live in, but in a perfect world, employment should add to your life, right? I know we call it, and I hear this all the time, well, they call it work for a reason. You're not supposed to like it. I'm going to just say and pardon my French, that's just BS, right? Okay. If you're in a career that just sucks the life out of you, it's not adding to your life, it's taking away from your life, right? So finding a way, and a lot of times when clients come to me, they're not really in a position to leave their job or their industry or their company, but they need to find ways to deal with it more effectively so that it can then add to their lives, okay? So that's really, when I'm seeing clients, that's my goal, is to help them find careers and again, it's not always about changing careers. Sometimes it's just about figuring out how to more effectively work within the area that you guys already have, okay? So, but it should be improving your mental health, not distracting from it. Adding to your well-being, adding to your self-esteem. And that's kind of where we come back to, do I feel valued as an employee? Do I feel happy? Do I enjoy coming to work? Do I enjoy working with my guests? Because my leaders value me, and I know that, therefore I'm going to value my guests. Okay? It should add to your quality of life, your social relationships, right? You don't want to leave work every day feeling like you want to go home and kick the dog, right? I mean, some days we're going to have that because we don't live in a perfect world. But don't kick the dog, right? So we're designed to be social beings. We are not designed. This is why the Geneva Convention actually got rid of solitary confinement, because it was just considered too brutal. Okay? We are social beings. And so it's important that we have community kind of integration. Okay? And we get a lot of that, we can get a lot of it, from our work, right? And from our colleagues, working with people, working with our team, working with our leadership, working with each other. These are just a few of the important benefits. So when we talk about career, I want to touch on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you guys have probably all seen this, okay? But from my perspective, I can take career and piece it down to the very lowest of basic needs, okay? Physiological needs, food, water, shelter, okay? Without a career, sometimes we're unable to provide those things for ourselves and our families, right? So career is important, even at that very basic need. Then we have our safety needs. Do we feel safe? Do we feel like we're in a safe environment, right? Career has a huge impact on that. Belonging and love needs. Do I feel like I'm part of a community within my, both within my family and my friends and my social circle, but it's also working with team members, right? So from a career standpoint, and self-esteem needs. Is my self-esteem being raised by what I'm doing and who I'm doing it for, right? The organization, the leadership. So the deficiency needs, I mean, these are the very basic needs, and career plays a role in every single one of those. Then when we talk about growth needs, cognitive, right? The ability to keep our brain stimulated, right? Our pathways in our brains continue to form even when we're older, off utilizing our brain, right? We get these little energy bursts that build our pathways together, which keep our brain functioning. So that is kind of we call it a growth need, but it allows us to continue using our cognitive abilities, and career can play a big role in that, right? And then when we get up to aesthetic needs, self-actualization, transcendence, this is all about being the best person that I can be, right? Again, you can see where career could add to any of those, right? So from the very basic level to the very top level, career has a big role. Just to give you a few statistics, okay, around 1 in 6 people experience mental health problems in the workplace. So, Heather, do you know just kind of roughly how many people we have in here?
45.
45, okay. I'm not going to do the math, but I would say that 1 in 6 people is going to basically mean, okay, correct me, 9? I was going to say 8, but we're good. Okay. 9 people in here, statistically, 9 people in here are struggling with some level of, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's depression, maybe it's grief, maybe it's loss, right? There's something, statistically, there's several of you that are probably struggling with some of this, okay? However, 1 in 3 employees still feel that mental health support in their workplace is inadequate and would like more support from their employers. So, when you guys want something from your leadership, right? I'm big on communication. It's your responsibility to ask for it and not just assume they're going to figure it out. Okay? But leadership also needs to be aware that people are struggling, right? The world is sometimes a difficult place these days. So if we've got 9 people in this room that potentially need some extra support, can leadership do anything about it, right? Nearly half of employees say their mental well-being declined in 2022. And remember, some of this has to do with COVID, some of it is a little bit farther beyond that. So 28% say they are miserable in their workplace, and 60% of employees also reported feeling emotionally detached at work. Right? Feeling empowered at work, feeling connected in our occupations is really important. And 60% is a lot, right? And these are current statistics. Only 13% of employees feel comfortable discussing their mental health in the workplace. So that's where reducing that stigma and having leadership, letting the GMs and the GMs letting their team know that it's okay to struggle, because we all do. Happy employees are 13% more productive on average. Okay? It's just a good number to know for leadership, right? Because you guys are in business to make money. How your guests are treated is going to add to or deduct from the bottom line. So we all want happy employees, happy and engaged employees. There are a number of coping skills. I actually did a handout, and Heather has it. So as soon as I finish, which, okay, great. I am going to have Heather hand those out, because I want you guys to at least take something tangible away today, okay? Now, it's a list of 99 coping skills. When you're feeling stressed, I know you guys kind of talked a little bit, it sounds like yesterday, about taking care of yourself, stepping away when you need to, exercising, doing the things that you need to do. It's like we have a little bucket within all of us. And if we just take this ladle and we dip out to our leadership, and we dip out to our team members, and we dip out to our colleagues, and then we go home and we dip out to our significant other, or our children, or our pets, or our friends, right? We just continually dip out. Well, when we're dry, we don't have anything left to give, and that's when we usually need extra support. So self-care is incredibly important, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but the handout is just a list of 99 coping skills that I have put together. It's not the be-all, end-all list, but it is a list that you guys can go through and figure out what works for you. Do I need to, do I need to go to the bathroom? Do I need to hang out in the bathroom stall for, 20 minutes and listen to my favorite music and just kind of recenter myself so I can kind of get back in there? That's okay, right? There's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it's almost wrong not to do it, because this is the way we refill our bucket, our internal bucket, so we can continue to dip out to other people. So if you guys are not filling your bucket, you're not going to be able to dip out to other people at the level that you could if you were filling yourselves up. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So I have this list, but again, there's other things that you guys enjoy doing, or you find that work for you, or you try some of these things and you're like, they don't work. There's other things on the list. Just try it. It's trial and error. Figure out what works for you to kind of refill yourself and recenter when you need to. Signs of burnout. This is a list of questions that you guys need to be asking yourselves to help you decide, are you burned out? And if so, what can you do about it? Okay? Do you question the value of your work? Do you feel removed from your work and the people you work with? Do you lack the energy to do your job well? Do you feel satisfaction from what you get done at the end of the day? Are you beginning to doubt your skills and abilities? Have your sleep habits changed? That's one of the big things that we see, is when people become, normally when they're becoming either more depressed or more anxious, struggling with some levels of grief. And grief is really just about loss. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone or a pet has passed away. Loss can be a number of things, right? We see, it's one of the first things that we usually see, is sleep patterns change. Do you drag yourself to work and have trouble getting started? Have you lost patience? We see irritability a lot. Have you lost patience with coworkers, customers, or clients? Is it hard to focus on your job? Do you feel let down by your job or your company? Are you using food, drugs, alcohol to feel better or numb the way you feel? Lots of times when and this is one of the reasons that I do dependencies and addictions, is because it's the number one way that people self-medicate and try to treat the symptoms, right? It's a way to escape. Do you have headaches, stomach, bowel problems, other physical symptoms with no known cause? So we know the science is out there. We know that gut health is directly affected by depression and anxiety, grief, and loss. So lots of times people have kind of, stomach issues that they don't really know where it came from. It's probably some level of emotional distress. Okay? Not only are these questions that I hope you guys will ask yourself, but they're questions that you can also ask your teammates. Ask your team that works for you, are they struggling with these things? How can you help them feel better so they can be more productive for you? Ways to deal with burnout before it costs you your career, okay? Keep work at work. I know that's easier said than done, but I talk with my clients all the time about boundaries. Set boundaries. Stick to them as firmly as you can, okay? If you need to take an evening to yourself, I mean, barring the restaurant literally being on fire, right? Most of the time it can probably wait till the next day, can't it? Exercise. And remember, exercise doesn't necessarily mean going to the gym. It certainly can, but it can be a number of things. It could just be walking the dog. It could be going for a run. It could be, going to the country bar and dancing, right? Anything that kind of gets you up and moving, dancing around your house, things like that. Exercise can be fun, but it's a very good way to increase those hormones, those happiness hormones in our brains, to be able to move forward. Set boundaries, we just kind of touched on a little bit. Boundaries are so important. Practice self-care, whatever that looks like to you, okay? Whatever you enjoy doing, whatever refills your bucket is self-care. There is no one-size-fits-all. There is no right or wrong answer. It's what works for you. But if you aren't doing things to refill your bucket, you're probably on your way to burnout, and you're not going to be able to add to other people's lives the way you want to. Take breaks, like I said, right? If you need to step out of the restaurant, or again, I hope I'm not telling people to do things that they're not supposed to be doing. But I mean, again, we all get under stress, and you guys are under so much stress in this industry. There's, frequently lots of turnover within your industry, trying to keep it staffed, trying to keep everything going. I read over last night just to make sure I had at least a little bit of an understanding of the job description, the basic job description for a general manager. And I thought, holy crap. When I looked at all of the things that you guys are supposed to be doing, and being in business, myself in the past, you guys have a lot on your plate. So taking breaks, setting boundaries, getting self-care that you need is going to be imperative for you guys to be the best that you can be, right? And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, asking for help is a lot more courageous than it ever is weak, right? It's not weak to ask for help. It's courageous to understand that we need some extra support, and we're going to step out and ask for that. Anybody that knows me, I'm like a dog with a bone when it comes to communication. I think wars could be averted if people just communicated them, okay? So I always kind of throw this in because it's important in any aspect of our lives that we communicate. If we have something that we need, it's not the other person's responsibility to look at us and kind of figure out, they look like they're struggling. They look like they're struggling a little bit. I guess I better try to figure out what's wrong with them. No, it's our responsibility to share what's going on with us and to tell people what we need. Okay? So when you're talking with your teams, and leadership is talking with their teams, the general managers, encourage open discussions, two-way, right? Not just, this isn't an interrogation, it's communication, right? It's a conversation back and forth. Schedule regular employee check-ins. Check in with your colleagues. Make sure they're doing okay. Okay? Let them know that they have a safe space to talk about what's going on. Communicate frequently and with transparency. We kind of talked about the transparency earlier. Give clear directions on tasks and responsibilities. That ambiguity causes a lot of stress. So make sure that our communication, we should make sure ours is clear, concise. People that we're talking to know what we're saying. And if we think that they're confused, ask them to repeat that back to us. So what did you hear? What did you hear me just say? And make sure you guys are on the same page. So there's less room for misperception of what's going on. And most importantly, when we're talking about mental health, which is overall health, ask them how they're doing. Number one, they may share a lot more with you than you think they will. And number two, they'll know you care. If you all have any questions about anything we talked about today. If something in a year from now comes up and you think, hey, you know, maybe Donna could answer this, or, you know, what do I need to look out for with my employees? How can I help them be more supportive? I never mind you guys reaching out to me.